your soulmate, is losing control over you, and their next move proves it. There comes a moment in every powerful connection where the energy begins to change. A moment when the person who once believed they had control over your emotions suddenly realizes you are no longer waiting, chasing, or breaking for them. And that moment shakes them deeply. Your soulmate is starting to feel your silence differently now. They can sense that your energy has shifted, that your attention is no longer trapped in fear, obsession, or emotional dependence. You stopped begging for love, and instead, you started remembering your worth. That is when everything changed. Because the moment you reclaim your power, the person who took your presence for granted begins to panic internally. They feel you slipping beyond their emotional reach, and their next move will reveal everything they were trying so hard to hide. This is not coincidence. This is energy. This is spiritual law. When you rise into confidence, peace, and self-respect, the connection transforms completely. Suddenly, they cannot stop thinking about you. Suddenly, your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. And what they do next will prove one thing clearly. They are losing control over you, and it terrifies them because deep down, they know your energy is no longer theirs to command. There is a silent transformation that happens when you finally stop giving someone complete emotional control over your life. It does not happen loudly. It does not arrive with fireworks or dramatic announcements. It begins within you in the deepest part of your spirit, where exhaustion finally turns into awakening. For so long, your soulmate may have been used to having access to your thoughts, your emotions, your attention, and your reactions whenever they wanted. They became comfortable knowing that no matter how distant they acted, no matter how confusing their behavior became, you would still emotionally revolve around them. But now something has changed. The energy has shifted, and they can feel it. The truth is, people become addicted to the energy you constantly feed them. When you continuously chase someone, overthink them, cry over them, or make them the center of your universe, they unconsciously begin to feel powerful in the connection. Your emotional attachment becomes predictable to them. They know you will respond quickly. They know you will wait. They know your heart remains open no matter how little effort they give. But the moment you pull your energy back and begin focusing on yourself, their emotional certainty begins to collapse. Suddenly, they can no longer read you the same way. Suddenly, your silence speaks louder than your words ever did. This is where the real power begins. Because your soulmate is not just reacting to your actions, they are reacting to your energy. Energy is always speaking, even when you are completely silent. The moment you stop obsessing over whether they will call, text, or choose you, your vibration changes. You become calmer, stronger, more centered within yourself. And that emotional independence creates a magnetic shift they cannot ignore. They may not fully understand why they suddenly cannot stop thinking about you, but deep down, they feel that something is slipping away from them. The control they once had is disappearing. Many people believe attraction only comes from physical beauty or perfect words, but true attraction is deeply spiritual and energetic. The strongest energy in the world is the energy of someone who no longer needs validation to feel valuable. When your soulmate notices that you are no longer emotionally available in the same desperate way, it creates emotional tension inside them. They start questioning everything. They begin wondering if someone else has your attention. They replay old conversations in their mind. They notice your absence in places where your energy once surrounded them constantly, and this inner confusion becomes the beginning of their awakening. What makes this shift so powerful is that you are no longer operating from fear. Before, your actions may have been driven by anxiety, insecurity, or the fear of losing them. But now you are learning to choose yourself. You are realizing that your peace matters more than emotional chaos. You are discovering that your worth does not decrease simply because someone fails to recognize it immediately. And that realization changes your entire aura. Your soulmate begins to feel that they can no longer emotionally manipulate your reactions the way they once did. This is why their behavior often changes suddenly after you emotionally detach. They may start reaching out unexpectedly. They may become more attentive, more curious, or even jealous. Some will try to test your feelings just to see if they still have access to your emotions. Why? Because your energy no longer feels easily controlled. And when someone senses they are losing emotional influence over a person they deeply connected with, fear begins to grow inside them. But this journey is not about revenge or making someone suffer. It is about remembering your own power. The universe never intended for you to lose yourself while loving another person. Love should never require you to abandon your peace, your dignity, or your self-worth. The moment you stop placing your soulmate above yourself, the entire connection changes. You stop vibrating from desperation and start vibrating from confidence. And confidence is irresistible energy. Your soulmate is feeling this shift now more than ever. They can sense your emotional independence rising. They can feel that you are no longer waiting helplessly for their attention. And whether they admit it or not, it shakes them deeply because your transformation forces them to confront a truth they were not prepared for. You are finally realizing your value, and once a person truly knows their worth, they become impossible to control. One of the most powerful truths about human connection is this: people often realize the value of your presence only when they begin to feel your absence. When you were constantly available, constantly checking in, constantly pouring emotional energy into your soulmate, they may have unconsciously become comfortable with your devotion. Your attention became predictable. Your love became expected. They knew that no matter how inconsistent they acted, you would still remain emotionally connected to them. But the moment you started creating distance, everything inside them began to change. Distance has a mysterious power. It forces emotions that were once hidden beneath comfort to rise to the surface. When your soulmate no longer feels your constant energy surrounding them, they begin to experience emotional emptiness they cannot easily explain. Suddenly, the silence becomes heavy. The space you once filled in their daily life becomes noticeable. They start checking their phone more often. They wonder why you have not reached out. They become curious about what you are doing, who you are talking to, and whether your heart is slowly moving away from them. What they once took for granted now becomes something they fear losing. This is because absence creates reflection. When people no longer have unlimited access to your energy, their mind begins replaying memories, emotions, and unfinished feelings. Your soulmate starts remembering the warmth of your conversations, the comfort of your presence, and the emotional security you gave them. Little things suddenly trigger thoughts about you: a song, a place, a late night silence. The emotional connection they tried to control now begins controlling them. And the more you focus on yourself instead of chasing them, the more powerful this effect becomes. What makes distance so transformative is that it shifts the emotional balance. Before, you may have been the one constantly seeking reassurance. You may have been the one overthinking every delay, every mixed signal, every moment of emotional distance from them. But now the roles are changing. Your peace unsettles them. Your silence confuses them. They can no longer predict your emotions the way they once did, and unpredictability creates obsession. Human beings naturally become attached to what they feel they might lose. This does not mean you are playing games or manipulating anyone. Real emotional distance is not about pretending not to care. It is about genuinely reconnecting with yourself. It is about no longer abandoning your happiness just to keep someone emotionally comfortable. The moment you stop centering your entire world around your soulmate, you begin reclaiming your own identity. And that self-respect changes the entire energetic dynamic between you. Your soulmate can feel when your energy is no longer chasing them. Even if you say nothing, they feel the emotional shift internally. They notice you are not reacting the same way. They notice you are becoming calmer, stronger, and more emotionally grounded. And this creates emotional pressure inside them, because people are deeply affected when they can no longer control the emotional access they once had. The distance forces them to confront emotions they may have ignored for a long time. This is why many soulmates suddenly return with unexpected messages, emotional confessions, or attempts to reconnect after a period of silence. It is not always because they planned it logically. Often, it is because your absence awakened emotions they could no longer suppress. The distance disrupted their emotional certainty. It forced them to recognize your value in a way they never did when you were constantly available. There is also something spiritually powerful about stepping back. When you stop forcing outcomes and stop trying to control the connection, you allow the universe to work naturally. Chasing creates resistance, but emotional peace creates attraction. The more you release desperation, the more magnetic your energy becomes. Your soulmate begins feeling pulled toward you because your energy now carries confidence instead of fear. And this is the deeper lesson behind the distance. The universe is teaching you that your value does not increase through chasing love. Your value was always there. You simply forgot it while trying too hard to hold on to someone else. Now your soulmate is beginning to see the version of you that no longer depends on their validation to feel complete. They are witnessing your emotional evolution, and it is affecting them more than they expected. Because when someone realizes they can no longer control your emotions, your time, or your attention the way they once could, fear begins to replace certainty. And in that fear, obsession is born. Your distance is no longer pushing them away. It is forcing them to finally understand how deeply your presence truly mattered. The moment you begin recognizing your true value, everything around you starts to change. Not because the world suddenly becomes different, but because your energy becomes different. For a long time, you may have believed that love required sacrifice, suffering, waiting, and emotional exhaustion. You may have thought that proving your loyalty meant constantly chasing, constantly forgiving, and constantly placing another person's needs above your own peace. But the day you finally remember your worth is the day the entire connection shifts forever. Your soulmate can feel this transformation deeply. They notice that you are no longer reacting from desperation or fear. Your conversations become calmer. Your emotions become more balanced. You stop seeking constant reassurance because you begin understanding something powerful. Your value does not depend on someone else choosing you. Real self-worth is not arrogance. It is the quiet confidence that knows you deserve love without losing yourself in the process. This realization affects your soulmate more than you think. When you finally stop over-explaining your feelings, stop begging for attention, and stop tolerating emotional inconsistency, it forces them to see you differently. Before, they may have unconsciously believed you would always remain emotionally available, no matter what they did. But now they feel your boundaries. They feel your strength. They sense that your energy is no longer easy to control. And that emotional shift awakens something inside them. People often do not fully appreciate energy until it changes. Your soulmate became familiar with the version of you that constantly reached for them emotionally. But now they are witnessing a version of you that is emotionally grounded, self-aware, and centered within your own peace. That confidence becomes magnetic because nothing is more attractive than someone who truly knows their worth. The universe works in powerful ways. When you stop abandoning yourself for love, you naturally begin attracting deeper respect from others. Why? Because the energy you carry teaches people how to treat you. If you continuously tolerate emotional confusion, mixed signals, and inconsistency, you unintentionally tell others that your boundaries are weak. But when you finally choose yourself, people begin realizing They can no longer access you carelessly. This awakening inside your soulmate often appears through subtle but noticeable changes. They may suddenly become more attentive. They may start initiating conversations more often. They may try harder to understand your emotions or seek your attention in ways they never did before. Sometimes they even become nervous about losing you because your emotional independence makes them realize you no longer need their validation to survive emotionally. And this is the deeper truth. Self-worth changes the entire energetic balance of a relationship. When you stop viewing your soulmate as the source of your happiness, you reclaim your power. You stop vibrating from fear and start vibrating from confidence, peace, and emotional stability. That energy is impossible to ignore. Your soulmate's awakening begins the moment they realize you are no longer waiting helplessly for their love. They begin to understand that your heart is valuable, your presence is rare, and your energy is not something they can endlessly take for granted. And as this realization grows inside them, they start seeing you with new eyes. Not as someone they can control emotionally, but as someone powerful enough to walk away from anything that no longer honors their worth. No matter how much a person tries to hide their emotions, energy always finds a way to reveal the truth. Words can be controlled. Silence can be used as a mask. Distance can be created intentionally. But when someone feels themselves losing emotional control over a person they deeply care about, their actions begin exposing feelings they can no longer suppress. And this is exactly what starts happening when your soulmate realizes your energy is changing. At first, they may try to act unaffected. They may pretend they are still emotionally in control of the connection. But internally, something begins shifting. They notice you are no longer chasing them with the same intensity. You are no longer reacting emotionally to every delay or inconsistency. Your focus is turning inward, instead of constantly revolving around them. And this sudden emotional independence creates pressure inside them, because they can feel your energy slipping beyond their reach. This is when their behavior starts becoming unpredictable. A soulmate who once seemed distant may suddenly become extremely attentive. They may begin texting unexpectedly, liking old posts, checking your social media constantly, or finding random reasons to reconnect with you. Sometimes they appear nervous, emotional, or unusually curious about your life. Why? Because your silence is forcing them to confront emotions they were previously comfortable ignoring. Human beings reveal their deepest feelings through behavior, especially when fear enters the connection. And the fear of losing someone powerful often awakens hidden emotions. Your soulmate may not even fully understand why they suddenly feel drawn toward you again, but deep down they sense the emotional shift. They feel that you are no longer emotionally dependent on them, and that realization shakes their sense of certainty. One of the strongest signs of hidden feelings is increased emotional effort. When someone fears losing access to your energy, they naturally begin trying harder to maintain the connection. They may suddenly want more communication, more closeness, or more emotional reassurance from you. Even small actions become meaningful because their soul is responding to the possibility of losing you permanently. What makes this situation powerful is that you are no longer trying to force anything. You are no longer exhausting yourself trying to prove your value. Instead, your calmness and self-respect are revealing your true power naturally, and your soulmate is reacting to that energy more than to anything you say. Confidence creates attraction because it signals emotional strength. It shows that your happiness no longer depends entirely on another person's behavior. Sometimes their next move may even seem dramatic or unexpected. They may suddenly confess feelings they kept hidden. They may become jealous, protective, or emotionally vulnerable in ways they never showed before. This happens because emotional distance often removes the comfort people once relied on. When they realize they can no longer control your attention so easily, Their true emotions rise to the surface. But the most important lesson here is not about watching their reactions. It is about recognizing your own transformation. Their actions are simply reflecting the energetic shift happening within you. The universe is showing you what happens when you stop settling for emotional uncertainty and start honoring your own worth. Your soulmate's next move will reveal more truth than their words ever could. Because when someone truly feels your energy pulling away, they stop hiding how deeply they care. Their actions become proof that your presence mattered far more than they were ever willing to admit. And in that moment, they realize something life-changing. The person they once thought would always stay emotionally available is finally becoming impossible to control. Every soulmate connection carries a deeper spiritual lesson, hidden beneath the emotions, the attraction, and the longing. What feels like heartbreak, confusion, or emotional distance is often the universe preparing you for a transformation you never expected. Because this journey was never only about another person loving you, it was about you discovering your own power. And one of the greatest tests the universe will ever give you is learning how to love deeply without losing yourself completely. For a long time, you may have placed your soulmate on a pedestal. You may have believed their attention determined your happiness, their messages determined your peace, and their presence determined your worth. Without realizing it, you gave away emotional control little by little. Your moods became tied to their behavior. Your confidence rose and fell, depending on how they treated you. But the universe cannot allow you to remain trapped in emotional dependence forever. So eventually, the connection begins forcing you to grow. This is where the test begins. The universe watches to see whether you will continue abandoning yourself for temporary emotional comfort or whether you will finally choose your own peace. It tests your emotional strength through silence, distance, uncertainty, and delayed outcomes, not to punish you, but to awaken you, because real love can never grow properly inside fear, desperation, or emotional imbalance. The moment you stop chasing and start healing, your energy changes dramatically. Instead of constantly seeking validation, you begin creating validation from within yourself. You stop begging to be chosen, because you finally understand your soul was never created to compete for love. This emotional maturity becomes incredibly powerful, and your soulmate feels it immediately. Even if they cannot explain it logically, the universe understands energy better than words ever could. When you were operating from fear of loss, your energy carried tension, anxiety, and emotional attachment. But when you begin trusting yourself, trusting divine timing, and trusting your own value, your vibration rises. You become calmer, more magnetic, more emotionally balanced. And this shift forces your soulmate to experience the connection differently. Suddenly, they can no longer predict you. They can no longer rely on your endless emotional availability. The emotional control they once felt begins disappearing, and that loss of certainty awakens fear inside them. They begin wondering if they are losing you. They begin questioning whether someone else now has your attention. They begin feeling the emotional absence of the energy they once took for granted. And their next move becomes proof that the universe has shifted the dynamic completely. But this lesson is bigger than romance. The universe is teaching you that your power was never supposed to live inside another person's hands. Your power lives within you. The more you reconnect with your self-worth, your peace, and your spiritual confidence, the less control anyone else can have over your emotions. And that is when everything changes. Your soulmate begins seeing you differently, not as someone waiting desperately for love, but as someone who finally understands their own value. Your calm energy becomes unforgettable. Your emotional strength becomes attractive. Your silence becomes powerful. And the universe rewards this transformation by restoring balance within the connection. Because the greatest victory is not making someone chase you. The greatest victory is becoming so emotionally strong, so spiritually grounded, and so deeply aware of your worth that no one can ever control your heart again. And once your soulmate feels that level of inner power rising within you, they realize something they never expected. You are no longer the person they once had figured out. And that realization changes everything forever.